This
Yes, we will
conference
start.
will now be recorded.
Chadurmukha Samarambham Vakbhadacharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Paramparam. Ragadirogan Sadatanushaktan Asheshakaya Prasrutan Asheshan Aulsukyamoharadidan Jakhana Yopurva Vaidyaya Namostu Tasmai. Nilesh, your connection is fine, no?
Yes,
You
sir.
are audible, sir. Clear.
Yes, sir. My
Okay,
connection is
okay.
good, sir.
Fine. There is one pop-up message that you are experiencing technical difficulties and the session will end soon. Anyway, we will go ahead. So, we were discussing about the dhadus and their vishesha karmas. Prenanam, jivanam, lepa, sneho, dharana, purane, garbhodpadascha, dhadunam, shreshtham karma, kramad, smritam. And I think we were about to complete it. Maybe one or two sentences about the Majja and Shukra. That is what we were left unexplained. We had left unexplained. This Shukra, as I mentioned in our previous session, cannot be considered as a fully independent or a Purna Dhatu, because it alone cannot do the Garbhodpada karma. Garbhodpadana karma. Garbhodpadana karma. The Shukradhadu facilitates the Bijotpatti of one type. Then the Shukradhadu, Stri Shukradhadu and Purusha Shukradhadu, they are saying, but at the same time their roles based on the gender is specific. So both of them are involved in the Bijotpadana. Bijotpatti. So one is Purusha Bija, the other one is Stri Bija. So only when these two Bijas join together, there is Garbholpatti. So Shukradhadu alone is not Garbhotpadana Samartha as such. So it is not a Purnadhadu. And Garbhotpadana is not an essential dharma as far as the survival of a particular being is concerned. Of course, it is very essential for the continuation of the being to the next generation, then to the next generation, and so on. But as far as one single living being is concerned, it is not essential. So that way, we can say that Majjadhadu is the last Purnadhadu. Majjadhadu is the last Purnadhadu in the Sharira. So obviously majja dhatu can be considered as the uh, finest formed sneha in the sharira. It is the finest formed after a series of dhatu parinama, from one level of sneha to the next, then from that level to the next. It is a continuous pajanam, and that pajanam results in sarakitta vibhajanam. So one sara is again Agnipakvam, then again Sarakitta Vibhajanam. So by the level of Majja, it can be considered as the finest Pakwa Sneha in the Sharira. In the Sharira. Now, we find that it has got the function of Astipuranam. As I mentioned in our last session, I would like to add something extra to it. That is not sufficient. That is what I feel. This Astipurana Dharmam is not sufficient to understand this Majja Dhatu or its Dharma properly. Now keep that point uh, in our mind. Now we all know that a being in total, a human being in total, has got four components: Sharira, Indriya, Sattva. Sattva means Manas, and Atma. Sharira, Indriya, Manas, and Atma. This Atma is not Bhautika. Atma is not Bhautika. There may not be any conflicting idea about it. I do hope. Regarding Manas, there are conflicting ideas. Certain schools of approach propose that Manas is born out of Ahankara. So that means Manas is Ahankarika. That way, Manas is Ahankarika. But there are differences in opinion in that regard. Even in non-Ayurvedic texts like Upanishads, certain Upanishads. Annamasidam tredha vidhiyade. The food you eat is getting processed and divided into three shares. And of those three shares, the finest one, nourishes the mind. Nourishes the mind. So if the finest share of your food is nourishing your mind, there should be a samanyam between your food and your mind. Food is panjabhautika. So if this food should nourish Manas, Manas also should be Bhautika. But this is a conflicting idea. Many people believe no, Manas is not Bhautika. But the other side, the opponents, the other group do believe that no, Manas is Bhautika. Not Bhautika, Bhautika. Not Bhautika, Bhautika. This is a conflicting idea. Now there is another component left, that is Indriya. What about Indriya? It may not be again, as I mentioned earlier, some schools propose that Indriyas are ahankarika. Sankhya Darshanam is the best example. It is ahankarika. But there, I think authors like Sushruta makes a strong proposition. In Ayurveda, Indriyas are bhautika. Indriyani bhautikani ahu. That is something like a conditional but categorical statement. In Ayurveda, Indriyas are bhautika. But still, they are considered as a separate component of existence. If Indriyas were organs like any other organ in the body, in the Sharira, we could have avoided that component, including them in the Sharira. When we say Sharira, Indriya, Sattva and Atma, if Indriyas were organs like any other organ in the body, you need not count them separately. But it is not so. They are counted separately. Sharira, Indriya, Manas and Atma. And there is a statement that Bhautikani Indriyani. They are in Bhautika. So Indriyas are Bhautika, but they deserve separate mentioning or special mentioning as a peculiar group, as a separate group, other than the ordinary avayavas of Sharira. And they bridge between Sharira and Manas. That is how they are placed. Sharira, Indriya, Manas, Atma. So they are the bridging or the connecting links between Sharira and Manas. So in my understanding, the last sneha of this Bhautika Sharira, that means Majja, is capable of nourishing the Indriyas, which are next to the Sharira, but which can be nourished by Bhautika components, Panchabhautika Ahara, Panchabhautika Sneha rather, and that Sneha is Majja. That is very important as far as my clinical perspectives are concerned. The Shukra Dhatu, when left unused or underused for making the bijas in male as well as female, they also will be contributing in the nourishment of Indriyas. They also will be contributing in the so that Purana is not just about filling a hollow space, but it is about the Sandarpana, which is not specified by words, but which can be perceived if you look into your clinical experiences properly. And I think there may be many interesting connections that the clinicians in this group may be able to share in this regard. I do hope so. There will be many clinicians who can add to this idea which I am presenting about this shukra and majja and shukra. In the overuse or misuse of shukradhadu by indulgence in sexual act, overconsumption of shukradhadu, you will find certain features explained. Brahmaklama uru daurbalya bala dhatu indriyakshayaha. Indriyakshayam can be seen there. Aparva maranam cha syad anyadha gacchata striyam. So I think this majja and shukradhatu, majja dhadu and the shukradhadu is delivering a very crucial role of indriya tarpanam of all sorts, all the five. And if told in a still finer sense, in the tarpanam of manas as well. Tarpanam of manas as well. So that is what I would like to add in this list of dhatu karmam prenanam jivanam lepa sneho dharana purane garbhodpadascha dhadunam sreshtham karma kramad smritam. So with that we conclude the dhatu karma. We started from the statement that doshadhadu malamulam sada dehasya. So now we have got one more segment left unexplained, that is mala. So we proceed further to see the dharma of mala. Avashtambha purishasya mutrasya clayda vahanam Svedasya clayda vidhriti. Avashtambha purishasya mutrasya clayda vahanam Svedasya clayda vidhriti. For that clayda vidhriti, there is one alternate version called kesha vidhriti. But clayda vidhriti is the padham which is having more or higher acceptance. So now avashtambha, purishasya shreshtham karma avashtambha. Purishasya shreshtham karma avashtambha. Avashtambha means dharana, to support, to hold up. These are all the meanings of the avashtambha here. So purishasya shreshtham karma avashtambha, deha dharana shakti iti arunadatta. So the purisha in the pakvashaya delivers a very important dharma of deha urdhva dharanam. We have seen deha urdhva dharanam as the function of, or the dharma of asthidha. Asthidhadu. They are different, even though the terms can be understood somewhat similar. In sense, they are different. One is a part of shakha, which we will find later, and one is a mala stored for a specific period of time in a specific part of the andarmarga koshtha. It is not like asti dhatu, but still the dharma is explained by the same word, dharanam, avashtambha. Mutrasya clayda vahana. So this avashtambha dharma of shakrit is very important. In certain clinical situations, we find certain comments made in this regard. Sarvadhadu kshayartasya balam tasya hi vid balam. That sort of observations we see later. Similarly, in individuals where extreme purisha kshaya happens, adivisargata, as in the case of Adisaran, they fail to stand up straight. They struggle. So these are all some sort of a credential or testimony that way to this statement that purishasya shreshtham karma avashtambha. Mutrasya clayda vahanam. Clayda vahanam is the mutrasya shreshtham karma. What is shreshtham? Sorry, that clayadam or clayda vahanam. That is an important understanding. What is clayadam and what is clayda vahanam? Clayda vahanam means nirvahayati. In the commentary we find nirvahayati, and in Hemadri commentary we will find it explained in a maybe an easier way or a more perceivable style, that cledasya bahir nirgamanam. Cledasya bahir nirgamanam. What is cledam? Cledam is a word which is used many a times in a very loose sense, without the sort of specificity that we expect from a Shastra Sahitya. Clayda yasya dravyasya cledane shakti sa snigdha. That is how Hemadri explains a snigdha dravya, or the sneha guna, snigdha guna. That's a good idea. That gives us the primary understanding about what the clayda is, and that tells us the fact that clayda is nothing but sneha. Clayda is nothing but sneha. Then why should we use the word sneha and clayda? The level of negative meaning that clayda can accommodate cannot be accommodated by the word sneha, the grade. So maybe the word clayda is more exhaustive than the word sneha. Yasya dravyasya snehane shaktihi sa snigdha. Yasya dravyasya cledane shakti sa snigdha. Then we find this cledam in many situations. Dushayitva vabukleda sweda medo rasamisham. In prameha samprapti we find. In kushta samprapti we find. In visarpa we may find. Rekta cledadhi jayate. Twang mamsa snayu samkledo rekta cledadhi jayate. Utkledaha. That word is also familiar. Klid. That is the root. Klid means to wet, to make wet. So is it about, say for example, is it about just making something wet externally? Suppose we have got a glass plate with us, and we put one drop of water on that glass plate. So that glass plate is wet now, or you wipe the glass plate with a wet cloth and the glass plate has become wet now. But does that make any change in the level of snigdhata that the glass plate was having before that event? No. This snigdhata, what is added by wiping the glass plate with a wet cloth, is not becoming a part of the glass. That is very important. Suppose uh, a leaf, a living fresh leaf on a tree, and the tree as a living being is having the sneha in it. All parts of the tree shares that sneha. Obviously this particular leaf about which we are talking is also having its share of sneha, snigdhata. Now you using a blade cut that particular leaf from the stem, and the moment you cut that leaf from the tree, from that stem, the supply of sneha to that leaf is cut. The next moment onwards, the leaf is becoming the leaf starts drying up. In no time, the very next matra onwards, it start drying up, because the supply of sneha to that leaf is cut. In 3 days, 4 days, it is becoming a dry leaf. Now you wipe that dry leaf with a wet cloth, and there is moisture on the top of that leaf. Is that the snigdhata of the leaf? No, the leaf is a dry leaf. So this sneha, this snigdhata, this clayda, to make wet klid, is not the type of dampness that you put from outside on the top, but the sneha, the dampness, the wetness, which is there as a part of the stuff. The very material of the stuff itself is snigdha. That is klid. But unfortunately, the other meaning of clayda is also used in our literature. When we say that use the word of clayda to explain the nature of a dravya, sometimes that need not essentially be the snigdhata within, but it may be explaining the dampness of from outside. Sometimes that dampness or that wet or the moisture or that watery part which is oozing out is explained as clayda, as in the case of a vrana. Sweda clayda sruti kodha sadanam murchanam mada kadugamlau rasau varna panduraruna varjida pitta dharmas or pitta karmas. We find claydam there. Using sneha, we go for a treatment called maybe snehapana in order to bring utkleda. So there we are adding the sneha in a peculiar manner to make the dhatu and the doshas attached to them klinnam. Klinnam means something which has gone through that addition of clayda. we find certain usages like sneha klinna, koshtaga dhadugava, srodolina, yecha shakhasthi samsthaha. So sneha klinna, using that sneha pana, we are making that stuff, targeted stuff, klinna. We are making that stuff klinna. Actually, the entire sharira, so klinnada or clayda is a manifestation of sneha within. Clayda is a manifestation of the sneha within. When we go through the explanation of kala, we find this word. Dhatvashayandara clayda. Kala is explained as Dhatvashayandara clayda. So, in short, clayda is, as I told earlier, the manifestation of sneha within in different forms. And when acharyas make a very bold statement that sneha saroyam purushaha, it can be reinterpreted as clayda saroyam purushaha. Sneha saroyam purushaha can be reinterpreted as clayda saroyam purushaha. So entire purusha stuff is manifestation of sneha in different forms and grades with different permutations and combinations, and hence it is a manifestation of clayda in different forms and grades with the different permutations and combinations. Then what is the difference between clayda and the different types of dhadus in the body? Is there any difference actually? Dhadus are formed inside the body, taking their share of nourishment from aharasara by constant, uninterrupted involvement and functioning of Agni. In different locations, in different styles. It is an uninterrupted process. And as we discussed in the case of dhadus earlier, one after the other, processing after processing, sneha is getting more and more refined by Sarakitta Vibhajana. In the periphery, it could be the crudest form of sneha. One step deep, some sort of a refining has happened by Sarakitta Vibhajana. Kitta is separated, Sara is upgraded. one step deep, again the same thing is happening. So this deep, deep, deep is the meaning of Gambhira, Uttana and Gambhira. Uttana is the play from the periphery. Gambhira is something deep inside. It is not in terms of measurement of the girth of the body, but it is in terms of the refinement that is happening one after the other to the higher levels of sneha. So at any given point of time, body will have a pool of sneha, some kept as a reserve, some added from outside in the form of aharasara and subsequently rasadhatu. And this planned, huge plan of processing sneha is working day in and day out, uninterruptedly, processing this sneha from lower level to the higher level and doing the act of Sarakitta Vibhajana. So in the Dhatu, as such, there is Sara only. In any Dhatu, there is Sara only. But interestingly, when Agni acts upon a particular Dhatu, to make it the next one, Dhadavaha khelu Dhatwahara, then there is a Kitta. But in the previous level, when that Sneha was manifesting in the form of particular Dhatu X, there is no Kitta in it. As part of the next refinement, some Kitta is formed. So in the Dhatu as such, there is no Kitta, but interestingly, always there is formation of Kitta. And where does this Kitta, which is formed continuously, is stored? That Kitta is thrown out of the plant of transformation of sneha and becoming a part of the pool of sneha which is there in the processing system. There is no other option. So in a finer sense, this could be the difference between dhatu and clayda. The clayda is a pool of sneha within the system which contains the sneha which can be used for making of dhatu continuously, plus the kitta formed by the continuous transformation of the dhatus. Whereas dhatus as such contain no kitta. So the sneha with that particular kitta is or can be called as samala sneha, which can also be called as clayda in a gross sense, from which samala part, the mala part, is to be collected and stored in the respective receptacles and slowly thrown out of the body to make the body nirmala, to make the body nirmala. So that way, to make the idea of dharana karma and the purity, the shuddhata of dhatu, that sneha inside the body, which is a part of the dhatu, as such is completely known as dhatu. And in this particular context, the malinya, the mala, the waste, which is obviously in the form of sneha, which is still there inside in the pool of sneha, is known as clayda for the time being. Because as I mentioned earlier, clayda has many other shades of meaning. And that clayda, which represents the malabhava in this particular context, is to be collected, stored, and drained out uninterruptedly. So its collection in the particular receptacle is an uninterrupting process, whereas excretion is more like a programmed one. So that particular clayda vahanam from the pool of sneha within, to make the sneha nirmalam, is the function of mutra predominantly. So that is what we should read while we say mutrasya clayda vahanam, mutrasya clayda bahirnirgamanam, mutrasya clayda bahirnirgamanam. So avashtambha purishasya mutrasya clayda vahanam. That clayda vahanam is very, very important. So now onwards, the mutra, what we were understanding till today, and the mutra, what we are going to understand now onwards, is different. Now we have got a different perspective about what mutra is doing, what is the importance of that particular karma, how it is making the body nirmala, how a problem with this kleda vahanata of mutra is so crucial in the understanding of many vyadhis, and why mutra pariksha opens up a new big world of opportunity for the Vaidya to understand what is happening inside a living body. It's an entirely new thing. So that is mutrasya kleda vahanam. Then Swedasya kleda vidhritihi. Swedasya kleda vidhritihi. Vidhritihi means to hold, holding. Sweda holds the clayda. Sweda, as we all know, is a mala which is coming out through the Swedavahani Srodamsi on the twak. And on that twak, the clayda, again see here the clayda, the word clayda is used to indicate the same clayda which is taken up from that pool of clayda within, which is samala, and so the Sweda itself is a mala, and still it has got a positive karma here. That means that Svedasya clayda vidhritihi shreshtam karma. In order to avoid the development of shushkata of the twak, certain amount of clayda, even though it is in the form of mala, is held upon the skin, twak, and that is supposed to be the shreshtam karma of Sweda mala. In the absence of which there will be a crisis of the twak becoming shushka and ruksha. Svedasya clayda vidhriti. So with these three pieces of explanations, we find how important the malas are for our existence. So we repeat: avashtambha purishasya mutrasya clayda vahanam svedasya clayda vidhriti. The rest of the things we will see in our next session. Once again, I hope I communicated the ideas in an understandable manner. If I have made it much complicated, we will discuss it later. Thank you very much. Vaidya Nilesh, shall we conclude? Because we have no sufficient time to start the new section.
Ye- Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely. We can conclude. Yeah. And continue in our next session.
Okay. Shubharatri to all.